All right, we're here again with former Cole County prosecutor Bill Tacket. So, Bill, let's get straight to it here. The jury finds her guilty in second-degree murder, but only 13 years. What are your thoughts?
Well, you had a compromise verdict here. They spent 12 hours, and these people came from another county, up in Clay County. They spent 12 hours, so they had to compromise. So you knew that it wasn't going to be a life sentence or it wasn't going to be a heavy sentence because they came down or they met in the middle with murder in the second degree. So then when they went in to deliberate on how many years, they still had that same compromise within the jury room, okay? Which means they came down with 13 and then 3 for armed criminal action. This looks very much like some trials in the past where sexual abuse by the victim, right, the snake handler, played a role. And that's happened before where there's been a lesser penalty. We actually call it the he needed killing verdict, all right? Because it's somebody that put this woman through hell or sexually abused her. That's the only real explanation for this because you have the jury saying, yes, he killed her. Well, 8 bullets, 1 in the back of the head, you don't give 13 years unless you have cause to believe that she needs a break.
And so you provide that explanation. I'll ask you, are you surprised by it?
I'm surprised because normally when you find somebody guilty of killing someone, even though it's not premeditated, you have life on the table, you have 10 to 30 years in life. A heavier sentence would seem to have played in here because the evidence of sexual abuse was not extensive. It wasn't, a whole bunch of prior calls, 911. It didn't become the central part of the trial, but in some fashion it made its way into that jury room, and that's where the he needed killing verdict came. And it's a crude way to put it, but I've just been around long enough and seen enough of these verdicts and have been involved in them to know that you don't get 13 years on a murder 2 unless there's something about the defendant that is sympathetic.
Let's talk about that. Lynlee took the stand in her own defense. Did that help or hurt her in the end?
Well, I mean, she showed a lot of, she cried, there was a lot of grief, but I've seen a lot of defendants do that. If she looked like a victim of sexual violence or of domestic violence, or they felt that, or something she said convinced them of that, then it helped her. Clearly.
So the jury recommends these 16 years put together. Judge Crane will then go and do a formal sentencing. You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah, he can't go above what they've recommended, and will likely, as most judges do, accept the number of years. It's 85% of the 13 years has to be served under Missouri law. 3 years, the 3 years she was given for armed criminal action, that the ACA is flat, and that means she does 3 years flat. So, she's given a low number, but is going to have to do a considerable amount of that sentence.
You were a prosecutor. Take viewers into that prosecutor's shoes today. How is he feeling with the decision?
Well, prosecutors fight every single day on behalf of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. A lot of folks, that's why we even get into the business. So there's a reality to that, all right? You still have a victim with 8 bullets in him, 1 in the back of his head. Okay, so this is a prosecution, but we all understand that the jury's going to take into account if someone has been sexually abused or the subject of domestic violence.
Let's go back now. Over 12 hours of jury deliberations. What could they have been talking about? What was going on behind closed doors? Obviously, we don't know. What's your best guess?
Well, it was a compromise verdict. You had some people that were with manslaughter, some with murder 1. You're all over the map. And finally, it's kind of agreed upon, well, we'll do murder 2, and then when we do sentencing, we can address the issue that you have in terms of sexual abuse or domestic violence. So it's a compromise, and that's what happens and should happen in a jury room. It happens every day. So in that way, it's pretty representative of the jury system.
We talked a few days ago about the national attention this case has been given. Do you think that plays a role at all here for the jury?
I don't think in this particular case, Court TV, I mean, they had one camera in there in the end, and they did have a truck out front. I'm not sure that the jurors fully understood, how national, or if this was going to be that national. I think they shook that off. I really do.
All right, Bill Tacket with analysis. Bill, thank you.